Good evening and welcome to tonight's public hearing. This hearing will include Columbus City Council's Health and Human Services, Finance, and Workforce Development Committees. I am Councilmember Priscilla Tyson, President Pro Tem of Columbus City Council and Chair of these committees. Before we begin, please be aware that this hearing is being recorded for rebroadcast on Ctve, the Columbus Government Television Channel 3. The rebroadcast schedule is available at www.columbus.gov. Tonight's hearing is one in a series of biweekly committee hearings that I hold in order to review legislation in the committees that I chair. This includes Health and Human Services, Finance, and Workforce Development committees. The goal of the hearings is to promote transparency and provide an opportunity for city residents to learn and to speak on legislation that impacts their lives. Further, the intent is to review legislation that will be on City Council's agenda for the following 2 weeks. Legislation covered tonight will be on City Council's agenda on either September the 12th or September the 19th. The speakers presenting this evening will include Department of Finance Joe Lombardi, the Director of Finance and Management, the Auditor's Office Melinda Frank, Income Tax Division Administrator, Columbus Public Health, Dr. Mashika Williams-Roberts, the Medical Director and Assistant Health Commissioner, and from the Department of Development, Hannah R. Jones, the Deputy Director of Community Development. So welcome. Welcome back. In addition to covering the legislation in tonight's hearing, the city's 2016 second quarter review will be presented. In the first segment of this hearing, I will ask Finance Director Joe Lombardi to review the city's financial state position, the quarterly review, which will examine the projected financial condition of the city for the remainder of the year based upon a review of revenues and spending to date for all departments and offices. Before turning it over to Director Lombardi, I would like to share a few words. As I have traveled and had the opportunity to learn about what is happening in other cities throughout our country, I can say with certainty that Columbus is one of the best managed cities in the entire country. We continue to be the largest city in America to receive a AAA bond rating from the 3 major rating agencies, credit agencies. In assessing where we are currently, as I am sure Director Lombardi will explain, we are very well positioned. Income tax collections continue to trend above the auditor's current revenue estimate, and expenditures in nearly all the general fund departments are tracking below budget. I now will turn it over to Director Lombardi to share any additional information about the second quarter review. Director, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. Just to give you some highlights first before we get into the very brief PowerPoint that I've provided this evening. For the second quarter review, we are currently projecting a $6.1 million carryover. That is an improvement of $3.7 million from the first quarter. As you had indicated, our expenditures are trending mostly under budget. Most of that is due to our utility and fuel costs, also in delay of hiring personnel for our departments. These expenditures also include any of the deposits that we've made at the beginning of the year for the Rainy Day Fund, the 27th Pay Period Fund, and the Basic City Services Fund. So all those deposits are included in our expenditure projections. The Division of Fire is showing a deficit of $2.9 million. Most of this is due to the fact that the 2016 budget was submitted prior to their contract with their union being finalized. I believe it got finalized late in 2015. So after we had already submitted the budget to City Council, those contract negotiations were completed. There is a transfer line in the budget which will offset some of that deficit. And then also, as you're aware, we will continue to monitor those expenditures for the Division of Fire And if need be, we will be able to come to this council requesting some transfers in the third quarter, which will then balance out their budget, so we will not end with a deficit. As you had indicated, our revenues continue to trend very positively and steady. Our income tax is still the largest of our resources. We are assuming a 3% increase over the 2015 estimate. Even though we're trending it at around 5% at this point, we believe that'll start to decline as the year progresses on, and we'll be at around 2.9 to 3% above 2015. Some of our revenues, unfortunately, are staying flat or a slight decline in them. Those include such things as property tax, our fines, local government fund, liquor and cigarette fees. But the casino tax is starting to trend a little better. It is a slight increase in our casino taxes that we receive. As of a note, as part of the second quarter review, Mayor Ginther has created the Department of Neighborhoods. That department is now, as part of the second quarter review, is now a functioning department as of July 1st. This department was initiated to better deliver services to our diverse community and our diverse neighborhoods. It includes our Community Relations Commission, our 311 call center, and neighborhood pride and neighborhood liaisons. So that is the highlights of the second quarter review. In the PowerPoint, I do have some graphs and financials to show you. If you have no questions, I can move on to the PowerPoint.
Just a couple of questions, and you just mentioned fire, and overtime in the fire is projected to be about $700,000.
That is correct, about $700,000 in overtime. Again, a lot of that is due to separations from the department. We do have a class of 40 that started in June. It should be on the streets early 2017. So that should help their overtime. Plus, we are working with the chief and the public safety director to make sure that those overtime costs are managed well.
So based upon, since those individuals will not be on the streets until early of 2017, we believe that this overtime cost is probably going to stay either around this number, but overall the Division of Public Safety will not have a deficit.
That is correct? That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And tell me a little about the surpluses and police overtime. We're not having that. And the reason for that.
Yeah, so the overtime with police is contributed to, again, having officers for our summer community outreach. Also, as we begin to ramp up into our OSU football season, there's still going to be some overtime, but we have budgeted for those early on in the year. Again, there is a class of 35 officers to offset any of the separations that we may have in the police department. I believe theirs is a 6-month training program, so they should be on the streets, or at least out of the academy somewhere in late 2016, early 2017. Again, the chief is doing a really good job of helping us with monitoring those overtime costs and deploying those police officers in a very strategic manner.
Thank you. And certainly I want to thank you and the Department of Public Service for the surpluses that you are carrying. And clearly, I think in the Department of Finance, a lot of it because of the the lower cost of the fuel and the lower cost of your utilities. So I appreciate that, as well as unfilled vacancies. So I thank you for what you're doing within your own department. And also, again, I want to thank the public service for the $2.4 million that they are able to give us as a surplus. So a question may come up that with the cost of, August the 2nd, we had a special election that the cost was about $1.2 million. And can you just share with me, was that captured in the second quarter review or not?
Yes, so that expenditure was captured as part of the second quarter review. That was, the number you gave is correct. It was $1.2 million that came from the general fund. That was captured in the citywide account that we have. We just utilized the money that was there, but it is as part of the expenditures that you see before you tonight.
And lastly, regarding the revenue, do you feel comfortable saying that we are in a strong position going into 2017, and especially consider the growth of the income tax?
Yes, I do. In working with the city auditor, as you know, Mr. Dorian is responsible for the revenue by charter. He and I work very closely together on that projection, and we both feel that we are in a good position moving into through 2016 and then into 2017. I feel we're in a very good position as a city.
Lastly, do you have a number that you want to carry over next year?
I do. We are still working with that number, but it will be in the ranges of that we've seen in the past. But we feel like with some of the work that we're doing right now, we're hoping that we can continue to grow that carryover through expenditures. This way, we're not needing as much to help us with any carryover to balance the budget.
Of course, as we know that the third quarter review will really be the telling review as to what we anticipate for year end. So thank you, and you can go ahead and complete your presentation.
Okay, thank you. And again, this is a very just brief PowerPoint. I believe is very similar to as I provided in the first quarter. So our first slide just gives you the fund balance summary for the general fund. At the beginning of 2016, we started out with about $65.5 million in beginning cash. If you subtract some of the outstanding encumbrances as of the end of 2015, it gave us an unencumbered cash balance as of January 1 of about $30.7 million. When you add in the receipts from the city auditor, that's better known as the revenue estimate from the city auditor of $795 million, plus any cancellations of monies that we had on encumbrances, we had a total available fund or cash for appropriations of $835 million. If you subtract what we are projecting in the second quarter review of $829 million, that leaves us with the carryover of the 6.1 that I spoke of earlier. And these are the funds that I discussed about the deposits that are made each year. As we had the income tax back in 2009, we promised our citizens and the voters that we would make sure that we get the rainy day fund to $75 million. We are on track to do that by 2018. We deposited $2.2 million this year, which brings our current total in the rainy day fund of $69.6 million. The next fund is what we call the anticipated expenditure fund, which is actually a 27th pay period. Every so often, we have 27 pay periods. So for that anticipation, we deposit about $2.3 million per year to build up that fund. So when that does occur, we can make the payroll for that 27th pay period. And if my math is correct, I think it's 2020 is when that happens. So we'll keep putting that in there to make sure that our employees are paid for that 27th pay period. And then the Basic City Services Fund, this was created to offset some of the state funding cuts that we have gotten back in 2013. So we do keep a balance into that for basic city services. This chart just
It's great that we did that on that particular fund because, of course, we know we took out $1.8 million this year for our budget. So wonderful thinking on our part, anticipating the need.
So the next slide is showing you the general fund revenue comparison between 2015 and 16. As I noted earlier, income tax continues to be the largest source of our revenue with steady growth. And again, we put about 0.25% of our income tax goes into the SIT for debt services on all of our capital projects on the bonds, which I can't remember exactly when that occurred, but I know we've been doing it for quite some time, and we will continue to do that to help pay for the debt services on the bond. Just a little inset on this is the other funds, just to show you the growth, since, as I said, the income tax is the largest of those sources, but the inset does show you where the other revenue sources are coming from, which is the local government fund, fines and penalties, license and fees, and then all other revenue sources that aren't within those categories. And that makes up all the revenue that the city brings in. As we indicate,
And they're all relatively flat.
they are all relatively flat. Yes, those are all relatively flat. The next slide is showing you the savings by category that we spoke of. As you can see, we are about 3 million worth of the 6.1 million is from fuel savings. As many of us who drive know that gas prices have been pretty low, and hopefully they will continue that way as the weather begins to change. The other, about 1.8 million is in utilities. And then you have supplies and other resources that we're saving some monies on, just our general day-to-day supplies. And again, just to note that savings are coming again from hiring delays by the departments, not hiring positions. As we go through the year, we look at all those positions, and I see them all. So the final sign-off for those positions before they move forward are through my office. So between myself and human resources and working with the department directors, we've been able to kind of slow down some hiring of some personnel with the service level still at a good rate. We don't want to lose any of our service levels to our citizens by, holding back too many of those positions. But we have done a good job of delaying most of those for this year. And as you alluded to, here is the safety overtime report. Again, we continue to work with public safety, both the director's office and the chiefs, to try to monitor the overtime costs for our uniformed employees. Again, a class of 40 firefighters that began in June will be coming on board early 2017, and then a class of 35 police officers that began in June, and there'll be another class of 35 that will begin in mid-December. So we should be having a class of police officers coming on board for getting out onto the streets, and then at the same time, another class of 35 will be in the academy for a 6-month training. And that concludes everything I had this evening for the second quarter review. If you have any questions, I'll be willing to answer those.
No, I think I've asked the questions, but the last question I will ask you, just in anticipation, I know we've looked at the uniformed police overtime, and in anticipation of the presidential candidates coming here between now and November, have we already put those dollars, have we already budgeted for that in the 2016 budget?
Yes, we have. That includes not only the presidential candidates coming to Columbus, but any of the other events that we have in Columbus between now and the end of the year have all been budgeted in these projections. As you know, and those in Columbus know that the home football games also we need a lot of officers, a lot of firefighters, and so all that's been projected in there with historical data and historical spends over the years. So those are all projected.
That'd be great. And then again, as you mentioned, even with the overtime that we're having right now, that could possibly be well, right now the variance it's positive. They're going to be able to, whatever deficits we may have, we will still have, they will not be deficits by the end of the year.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. You can move on with your legislation.
Okay, this evening, Finance has about 19 pieces. Most of them are going to be universal term contract ordinances, so I won't go too fast, but I'll try to move it along for everybody. The first ordinance is 1941, 2016. This is to amend the 2016 capital improvement budget to authorize the city auditor to transfer various funds within the construction management capital improvement fund, to authorize the finance and management director to expend $555,000 or so much thereof as may be necessary to reimburse the general fund for construction and building renovation expenses incurred by construction management. Basically, each year we budget for our construction management staff in a normal general budget, but we do not budget their entire cost because we do charge back to the divisions when we do construction management for them. So what this ordinance is allowing us to do is asking the city auditor to transfer that money so that we can then offset the cost of our labor and time and material that we spend on, whether it's a building, a renovation, any kind of rehabilitation to any of our city buildings. So this is just to reimburse the general fund for those services. Next ordinance is 1956, 2016, and it's to authorize the finance and management director to enter into one contract for the option to purchase basin collector parts with Evoqua Water Technologies and to authorize the expenditure of $1. This is to establish a universal term contract for basin collector parts used by the Department of Public Utilities at their water treatment plants. They are the only user, and they'll spend approximately about $100,000 a year on this universal term contract.
Director, and maybe you can just answer this question now as opposed to as we move forward, but there's a number of pieces of legislation that will show there were a lot of bids. Like this one has 42 bids were solicited and only one was received. And so I know there's a number of pieces that say that. So can you really just kind of share why that happens? Sure.
So in our bidding system, we use commodity codes, and vendors will register with our City of Columbus Purchasing Office under certain commodity codes. And in this particular one, when you look at wastewater treatment plant and water plant parts and supplies, typically those are unique to very few companies because as they build those systems at those plants, those are engineered by a certain company, and to get those parts, especially in public utilities, it's a very small group of vendors that can provide those parts and supplies for those systems. In other cases, again, it depends on how a company was registered, whether or not they can have the capacity to handle those bids would be another reason why you would have maybe 50 bids that went out because 50 individual vendors have registered, but that's really not what their forte is. So that's usually what we see.
All right, Director, thank you.
Next bid is 1957, 2016. This is to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into one contract for the option to purchase Fairbanks Moore's parts and repair services from Pentair Flow Technologies, DBA Fairbanks. I'm going to go with Najuhis, and this is to authorize an expenditure of $1. Again, this is a universal term contract for Fairbanks Moore's pump parts. For the Department of Public Utilities is the largest user. They estimate to spend about $140,000 on this particular contract. Next ordinance is 1978, 2016, authorize the Finance Management Director to enter into one universal term contract for the option to purchase lumber and related materials with Sutherland Lumber Company of Kansas City, to authorize the expenditure of $1. This contract is a citywide universal term contract for lumber. Our divisions of our departments of recreation and parks, public service, or finance and management, facilities management. This is just to purchase your lumber, 2x4s and plywood and those sort of things. This is a citywide contract with an estimated value of $50,000 a year to be expended on that.
Thank you for sharing. I was going to ask you which departments utilize the lumber, and you've shared that, so thank you.
You're welcome. The next ordinance is 1992, 2016, to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into one contract for the option to purchase Infilco bar screen parts from Tencarva Machinery Company, DBA Southern Sales Company, in the expenditure of $1. Again, another universal term contract. This is for parts for Invelco bar screens that are used at the Southerly Wastewater Treatment Facility. The bar screens kind of move things along at the wastewater treatment plant. The estimated value of this contract is $100,000 per year on this, and Public Utilities is the largest user and the only user of that contract. The next ordinance is 2065, 2016. This is to authorize the Finance and Management Director to issue purchase orders up to $100,000 for miscellaneous hardware and hardware-related equipment with Granger, Sid Tool Company, and Fastenal from an existing cooperative state of Ohio term contract, and to establish those POs against that contract. Ordinance 582, 1987 authorizes the city agencies to use state of Ohio Department of Administrative Services contracts when it's deemed most cost effective. Currently, our city code does not allow us to award multiple contractors without waiving competitive bidding. And we felt that it was in the best interest of the city on this particular case to use a state term contract. We did not feel we would get any better pricing had we had bid it out. So we are utilizing the ability through that ordinance from 1987 to it's a cooperative purchasing, and it is formally bid by the state of Ohio. So it is a formal bid procedure that they use. So we will establish contracts with those three companies, and various divisions can then buy off of any one of those contracts through our Venamaya e-catalog system. The next ordinance is 2071, 2016. This is to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into one universal term contract for the option to purchase miscellaneous medical supplies with Boundtree Medical, LLC, and to authorize the expenditure of $1. This contract allows us to buy various medical supplies for our Division of Fire, the EMS, Emergency Medical Services personnel, to put on our squads. These are the medical supplies that they will use. The total estimated amount is about $1 million a year in those in the use of those medical supplies on our EMS vehicles.
Director, in this legislation, it also says that this bid was coordinated with the city of Westerville, And so with that, can you talk a little bit about the coordination between Columbus and Westerville, and how does that, that relationship become advantageous for us?
Sure. So we have an agreement with the city of Westville. We ask for their needs, and we place that on our contract since we have the bigger volume and get better economies of scale that way. So with that partnership with Westerville, they are able to use this contract as well to purchase from our contract for their EMS folks too, so that we're not duplicating efforts.
Thank you.
The next ordinance is 2078, 2016, to authorize the Finance Management Director to enter into contract with the option to purchase Alamo mower parts with Lake Cow Equipment, Inc., and to authorize the expenditure of $1. This contract allows us to purchase lawnmower parts for our fleet management division. We have a small motors group at fleet management that fixes anything from weed eaters to lawnmowers to riding mowers to push mowers. So these parts will be used by our fleet management division to fix those mowers that are probably most likely used by the division or Department of Recreation and Parks. And the annual expenditure on that's about $10,000.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2086, 2016, to authorize the Finance Management Director to enter into a contract for the option to purchase transmission parts with Transtar Industries, Inc., and to authorize the expenditure of $1. Again, we are establishing a universal term contract for transmission parts for the City of Columbus vehicles and equipment on an as-needed basis. The largest user and the primary user on this is our Fleet Management Division. They looked at a total estimated annual expenditure of about $10,000. Again, these are parts for our transmissions in our different vehicles when they come in to have those vehicles fixed at our Fleet Management Division.
Thank you.
Next ordinance is 2087, 2016. This is to authorize the Finance Management Director to enter into a contract for the option to purchase Parker hydraulic hoses with Hirsch Packing Rubber Company and to authorize the expenditure of $1. This again establishes a universal term contract to be used on an as-needed basis for our Division of Fleet Management, our primary user. These are for hydraulic hoses that are on some of our larger pieces of equipment, such as our refuse trucks and dump trucks that have hydraulics within their vehicle. Again, the total expenditure, annual expenditure for this is $10,000. Next ordinance is 2088, 2016, to authorize the Finance Management Director to enter into a contract for the option to purchase boat parts with Blue Water Marine LLC and to authorize the expenditure of $1. This legislation establishes a universal term contract for boat parts. The boats, Fleet Management is our primary user on this. The parts are used for the boats that are used by our Department of Safety. Both, I believe, our firefighters and our police department both have boats that have need for repair. So these are for the parts for those boats.
Certainly want to make sure that, I mean, all this legislation is important, but if you think about the Department of Safety, that typically, when they need the boats, they're pretty much out either at rescuing someone, and so want to make sure they have all the equipment they need to be able to save lives.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Next ordinance is 2090, 2016, and this is to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into one universal term contract for the option to purchase sanitary paper products and dispensers with Carmen's Distribution Systems, Inc., and for expenditure of $1. This is, again, to set up a universal term contract to be used on an as-needed basis to purchase sanitary paper products and dispensers for our various divisions. We spend about $170,000 annually as a city on this contract.
And again, this particular legislation, I think that there were 57 bids were solicited and at least 5 were received. And I think that those type of products, I think there are companies that certainly are registered with the city that could provide those products.
That's correct.
Thank
That's
you.
correct. The next ordinance is 2143, 2016. This is to authorize the Director of Finance and Management on behalf of Fleet Management to modify an existing contract with Asset Works for additional GPS hardware monthly monitoring to be utilized by the Department of Public Utilities, and to authorize the expenditure of $220,480.80 from the Department of Public Utilities 2016 operating fund. The Fleet Management has a contract with Asset Works, Inc. This is our GPS that gives us the ability to review the maintenance history and the usage of our city vehicles. To try to be consistent throughout the city, the Department of Public Utilities approached us and asked if they could join in on the contract. And so we are modifying the contract to allow them to utilize the contract for their vehicles. They're using their enterprise funds to pay for their portion of the monitoring and the services that are going to be provided under this contract. And it does help with our fleet management to collect data for maintenance records and how often vehicles are being used. If we have high mileage vehicles and those sort of things. So it's a very good system, and I think DPU just wanted to be into that system as well. So
Thank you. And certainly, can you just mention how successful this has been for the rest of the city vehicles that have already been using this system? And this is why that Department of Public Utilities wants to be a part of this.
Sure. So what we have found is, through the monitoring, through the records that we're getting from this contract, that we're able to be more proactive in our maintenance. We are able to see which vehicles may be underutilized and maybe transfer those to divisions who have a need for vehicles, as opposed to buying new vehicles. We can transfer those lower mileage vehicles to, for example, development if they don't need a vehicle that drives every day. And if we have a vehicle that is underutilized, we can then transfer. So it saves us money on that side. But I think the key to it is just the fact that the maintenance records, and we're able to be more proactive, which in turn will save us money. If you're getting oil changes every 3,000 miles and tire rotations, saves you money on the back end.
Thank you. This is what, $220,000, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
The next ordinance is 2195, 2016. This is to authorize the Finance and Management Director to modify a universal term contract for the option to obtain the rental of portable toilets with ProClean Industrial Services, DBA PortaClean. And there is no financial impact for this. What we have is we have a contract. We have two contracts for our portable toilets that we use at various events, 4th of July and those sort of things. Sections 1 and 2 of that contract were awarded to a company, ABC Restroom, and Section 3 was awarded to ProClean Industrial Services. These are sections of the city that they were awarded. We were having some difficulty with the services in the sections 1 and 2 with ABC Restroom. We decided that it might be in our best interest to go ahead and award sections 1 and 2 to PortaClean as well. So we actually have two contracts for sections 1 and 2. So our largest user is Recreation and Parks, so that they can use both companies, especially with some of their larger festivals that they have, and provide these services for portable toilets. And again, there's no financial impact here, and what the Recreation Parks will be able to do is find who between the two companies who's available to service them.
All right. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. The next ordinance is 2196, 2016, and this is to authorize the Finance Management Director to execute those documents necessary to convey fee simple title to the city surplus real property identified at 1716 Parsons Avenue to J. Cheplowitz. And this ordinance is to sell property at 1716 Parsons Avenue. This is the former location of Fire Station number 14. So this is just to authorize the Finance Management Director to enter into that sale of that piece of property to Mr. Cheplowitz.
Thank you. I know that this certainly was which was the fire station number 14 was certainly, we were trying to sell, city's been trying to sell that property for quite some time.
Yes.
And so glad that we're finally able to sell the property for the $155,000. And just wanting to make sure that, that this is a fair price for the property.
Yes, we paid fair market value on, he paid a fair market value on this, so it is within the market price of the property.
Thank you very much.
The next ordinance is 2201, 2016. This is to authorize the Finance Management Director to enter into a contract for the option to purchase equine medications and medical supplies with Patterson Veterinary and Supply, and authorize the expenditure of $1. This is a universal term contract for equine medication. I always have trouble saying that word. And medical supplies for our Division of Police Mounted Horse Patrol Unit. This is the medications for our horses, and they are the primary users, and they will spend about $5,000 a year annually on this contract.
Can you please share why we would have a UTC for this particular contract?
The reason why we would have it is so that we can order those medications on an as-needed basis. I don't know if the mounted unit has any area, such as our health department, where we could store those medications, but we would buy those on an as-needed basis as we need those for our horses.
All right, thank you.
Next ordinance is 2232, 2016, to authorize the Director of Finance and Management to enter into a contract on behalf of the Office of Construction Management with Ryder Company for the installation of storm windows at 77 North Front Street, to authorize the expenditure of $199,800 from the Construction Management Capital Improvement Fund. This contract is part of the 77 North Front Street, which is the old police building that was renovated. And this is, the project consists of installing some interior windows, some storm windows interiorly. We have some window panels that were weren't done in the first phase, so this is going to help us take care of what was not completed in the first phase. This is going to help us with that. These are, most of all the existing windows have some openings, so we're going to go through and find those, and we're going to put storm windows in those areas where storm windows should be put.
And so as we install these new windows, hopefully this will add to the efficiency of that building, and it will save us utility dollars.
That is correct. That is the goal there. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Next ordinance is 2255, 2016, to authorize the Finance Management Director to renew a contract with Cone Inc. for maintenance, service, and repair of various elevators under the responsibility of Facilities Management Division, to authorize the expenditure of $160,000 from the general fund. This legislation authorizes to renew the contract on behalf of Facilities Management with Cone for maintenance of all of the elevators that we have in our city facilities, including City Hall. This is part of the original contract, and we are just extending it for one additional year as part of the renewal options that we had in the original contract. The last ordinance of this evening does not have a ordinance number at this time. This ordinance is for the Franklin County Convention Facilities Authority. They are considering to do a refund of some of their previously issued bonds to achieve better interest rates. The City of Columbus has to authorize the legislation to provide its consent to this refunding. This is required under the lease arrangement with the convention facility. There is no financial impact to the City of Columbus, and we spoke with the Facilities Authority, and they believe that ordinance will be on for the 19th for consideration by City Council. They have reached out to both myself and Mr. Dorian for approval and authorization to do this, and we have both concurred that we think it's a good idea that to refund these bonds. So this is just part of our lease with them, that they have to seek our approval to do that. And,
thank you.
And that concludes my ordinances for the evening. If you have any questions, I'd be willing to answer them.
No, I was just going to mention on this last piece of legislation that certainly I'm glad they've reached out to you, to the auditor's office, and to you, and I'm sure they'll be reaching out to our offices as we have to put this legislation on. And certainly in terms of refunding, we definitely understand the benefit of refunding. We've done that a number of times with our own bonds, and certainly any way that they can reduce their interest rates and save dollars for the residents of Franklin County, we certainly want to make sure that that happens.
That is correct.
Thank you. All right, and so thank you, Director Lombardi. And our next presenter will be Melinda Frank, the Income Tax Division Administrator from the Auditor's Office. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. I will be sharing information with you regarding the expenditure of funds by the Income Tax Division in relation to two ordinances, the first being Ordinance Number 1904-2016, which authorizes the Office of the City Auditor, Income Tax Division, to enter into contract with Diversity Search Group for temporary staffing services and to authorize the expenditure of up to $80,000. Throughout the year, the Income Tax Division has periodic increases in documents received to be processed. This requires flexible staffing in the document management area to ensure that those documents are timely opened and placed in our workflow application in order to maintain production levels. Temporary staffing provides the flexibility in assisting full-time staff with their jobs. 3 formal bids were received for this service, and the lowest bidder was determined to be non-responsive. Diversity Search Group was determined to be the most responsive, responsible, and best bidder. The legislation will authorize, as mentioned, the expenditure of $80,000 for the period extending from October 3rd, 2016 through September 30th of 2017 for temporary staffing as required. These temporary staff members open, sort mail received, prep and scan documents to place them in our workflow application, as well as providing data entry services.
Thank you very much.
The next ordinance that I'll be discussing is 2202-2016, and this amends capital improvement budget to authorize the appropriation and transfer of funds from General Permanent Improvement Fund and to authorize and direct the finance manager to submit a purchase order for 2 high-speed Fujitsu scanners, as well as providing for 2 one-year scan care warranties for the Division of Income Tax. It would authorize the expenditure of $22,994.20 from the General Improvement Fund, as well as $5,271.94 from the Income Tax General Fund, with a total expenditure of $28,266.14. This ordinance authorizes the expenditure of the CIP funds in the amount referenced for 2 high-speed scanners that will be used by the Income Tax Division in its daily operations. All of the documents that are received by Income Tax are scanned into our workflow system, and this allows for the account archives for each individual taxpayer to be immediately updated so that we can quickly access the information. It also allows us to destroy hard copy documents that have been received as soon as the retention schedule period in our document retention schedule has expired. These scanners are critical to the operating efficiency of the division and replace 2 of the original scanners purchased in 2006. The original scanners with 11,508,899 images and 5,270,397 scanned images, respectively, they're at the end of life and are no longer even maintained by the manufacturer. In addition to the CIP funds, this ordinance authorizes the expenditure of $5,271.94 from the general fund for the purchase by the division of 2 one-year service warranties. Purchasing processed formal bids for the scanners as well as for the warranties, and 3 bids were received. Mackesy Brennan, Inc. was awarded the bid deemed to be the lowest, most responsive and responsible bidder. If you have any questions with regard to this action by the division, I'm here to answer them for you.
No, I don't think I have any questions. So certainly they have been a 10-year lifespan, and this is just, does someone actually put each document and have to physically?
Not only do they scan them through, they're batched and they're verified. So people scan them in and then review the batches to ensure that the documents are correctly input into our archives.
Well, thank you, and these certainly are important high-speed scanners, and also allows you to get rid of information at the appropriate time. That's significant, the numbers you just read to me.
It surprised me also when I asked my business analyst to provide them. I knew that they were at end of life, and we had heavily used them, but the number of images, and those are only 2 of, we have 4 high-speed scanners in our office, so that's only 2 of the scanners. We still have 2 existing scanners that were after acquired that we're utilizing.
Well, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Our next presenter will be from, we'll move to Health and Human Services, and from the Health Department we'll have Dr. Mashika Williams-Roberts. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you, President Pro Tem Tyson. Columbus Public Health has 4 items this evening, and I will go in order. First is ordinance number 2076-2016. It's to accept and appropriate Central Ohio Trauma System Coalition grant. Columbus Public Health has been awarded this grant from the Centers for Disease Control that goes through the Ohio Department of Health and then to the Central Ohio Trauma System. This ordinance is needed to accept and appropriate $4,000 in grant money for the period of July 1, 2016 through June 30th, 2017. This grant provides funds to continue the coordination of the county-level coalition in Franklin County, which includes all of our hospitals and first responders, and this group meets at least twice a year here in Franklin County.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we have ordinance number 2180-2016. This is to accept and appropriate additional funds for Ebola monitoring of travelers. These additional funds have been made available to Columbus Public Health for Ebola monitoring of travelers from the Ohio Department of Health, originating from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This ordinance is needed to accept and appropriate $218,976.75 in grant monies to assist with the expenses for Ebola monitoring of travelers from the period of July 1, 2015 through June 30th of 2016. So that you are aware, Columbus Public Health monitored 476 travelers from the period of December 22nd, 2014 to January 22nd of 2016.
Dr. Roberts,
Yes.
are we still monitoring individuals?
No, we stopped monitoring individuals in January of this year when CDC said the Ebola crisis was over in West Africa, and that was no longer needed to here in the United States.
And so, and these fees are to reimburse us for the work that we already completed.
Correct.
when it was a major crisis.
Correct. When we were responding at the time, CDC and the Ohio Department of Health had not appropriated any money, so we were using general fund dollars to staff and to respond to that outbreak.
Thank you very much, and thank you and your team for all the work that they did to monitor those 476 individuals.
You're welcome. Thank you. Next, I have ordinance 2211-2016. This is a contract with Access Health Columbus. The Board of Health has a need for the coordination of efforts to improve primary care for the most vulnerable here in the greater Columbus area. This ordinance authorizes the Board of Health to enter into a contract with Access Health Columbus, which is doing business as Healthcare Collaborative of Greater Columbus, to support regional healthcare improvement projects coordinated by the Healthcare Collaborative of Greater Columbus. This contract is for the period of September 1 of 2016 through August 31st of 2017 in the amount not to exceed $25,000. The Healthcare Collaborative of Greater Columbus is a broad-based nonprofit community partnership whose mission is to improve access to healthcare in Franklin County, particularly for the most vulnerable persons, by convening public-private partners and coordinating innovative solutions. This contract is designed to address 3 improvement activities: 1, accountable care coordination; 2, quality transparency; and 3, public health and access to care.
Dr. Roberts, will they, at the end of August of 2017, will they then provide a report back to you? Do they report annually as to the work that they're doing?
So yes, the Healthcare Collaborative of Greater Columbus does do an annual report, but through the deliverables for these funds, this $25,000, they will have to report back to us the progress that they've made, but it also be included in their annual report that's available to the community.
Okay.
And last but not least, I have ordinance number 2220-2016. It's the purchase order for an electronic document imaging and record storage system. This legislation authorizes the Director of Finance and Management to modify a purchase order, which is FL006429, with Prime AE Group Incorporated, for the purchase of an automated vital record system that includes a document and imaging management system and the associated software, license, maintenance, and support services for the Vital Statistics Office at Columbus Public Health for the amount not to exceed $24,928.20, and a total contract amount not to exceed $186,864. This modification will provide for an additional 132 hours of support services that are needed to successfully complete the migration and needed configurations, along with providing training to our vital statistics staff. In order to maintain quality of the service and keep up with the growing demand of vital records, Vital Statistics needed to update its current record-keeping and imaging system. This purchase was also necessary because the current application that was being used for imaging or document management will no longer be supported by the vendor, Streamline Health, at the end of this current contract.
Thank you. So then we had to get a new system?
Yes, we will be converting over to a new system.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Our final agenda speaker this evening is the Director of Community Development, Hannah Jones, from the Department of Development. The floor is yours.
Good evening, President Pro Tem Tyson. For your consideration this evening, we have 2 ordinances. The first ordinance is Ordinance 2116-2016, and while I'm describing it, I would like to invite Sarah Loken with the Community Shelter Board to the podium. This ordinance allocates $350,000 to 5 nonprofit organizations to assist with repairs that need to be made to shelters for homeless individuals and families. There's $38,099 going to Lutheran Social Services, $82,717 to Mary Haven, $172,629 to Southeast, $16,167 to the YMCA, $40,388 to the YWCA. I invited the Community Shelter Board because they actually manage the application and award process and thought they could give us a good overview of how that worked and what types of repairs we'll see with this funding.
Good evening, Sarah. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Thank
Floor is
you.
yours.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, President Pro Tem Tyson. With your support, as you know, we will provide life-saving emergency shelter for 10,000 people this year. The rehabilitation funds being described tonight will allow 5 different shelters to make much-needed repairs to their facilities. And it was our pleasure to oversee a competitive application process on your behalf. We do that every year that funds are available for shelter rehabilitation to help identify what the most pressing needs are across the homeless system. Every shelter that applied is receiving at least some funds, so we're very happy about that. And we worked hard to assure a fair and an open process for applying for those funds. And we scored applicants based on things like need, project design, cost efficiency, and their ability to produce things like third-party cost estimates for these projects. And some of the biggest ticket items that will happen across those 5 shelters are making some bathrooms handicapped accessible at the YMCA, replacing a roof at Mary Haven's Engagement Center, replacing dormitory flooring at Lutheran Social Services Faith Mission, also replacing a roof at Southeast Friends of the Homeless Men's Shelter. And then at the YWCA Family Center, among some other things, they will be renovating bathtubs that are used to bathe the little ones. So these are all important projects that we're very excited to see our partners move ahead on, and we're very grateful for the opportunity. I can certainly answer any questions that you may have.
No, I don't have any questions. Just really thank you for leading this effort and working with these agencies to be able to renovate their buildings, to be able to provide resources to our homeless individuals and families. And so, no, thank you that you're going to, they'll have repairs, as you mentioned, such as ADA bathroom roof replacement, repairs to kitchens, bathrooms, and dormitory areas. So thank you for your work. We want to make sure that the individuals that are utilizing our facilities certainly are able to come into facilities that uplift them. And so thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. $350,000 will be well spent. Thank you.
Thank you. The second ordinance for your consideration this evening is 2231-2016, and while I'm describing it, I would like to invite Rick Davis, who serves as the Executive Vice President of Lutheran Social Services, to the floor. This ordinance allocates $2 million towards the renovation of 217 North Grant Avenue. This is the renovation of the facility that will serve as the women's shelter and the men's shelter once the relocation is complete for Faith Mission. And I invited Mr. Davis to give you details about the work.
Good evening, Mr. Davis.
Good evening, President Pro Tem Tyson. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to present to you. You'll recall last year the city assisted Lutheran Social Services in the acquisition of it's the 217 North Grant building, what we refer to as the old Buckeye Printing building. That acquisition has occurred, and the work has begun on the building. It's going to allow us to relocate the 6th Street Men's Shelter to the building, the former Nancy's Place Women's Shelter, and also 15 to 20 veterans that are currently at our Faith on 8th Shelter. Really unique thing about this opportunity for us is the fact that the building is located adjacent to, we call it the 245 North Grant building, which is the Faith Mission Hub building. And the really neat thing about this is that those services, those needed services that clients would need to access are right there. That would be our resource center for jobs and housing, our healthcare clinics, the community kitchen that serves probably 800 meals a day. So you're quite familiar with that, I'm sure. We have begun the renovations to 217 North Grant. And thanks in a large way to the city's support of $2 million towards those renovation costs, we're well on our way. We'll be locating or relocating, when it's all said and done, 110 men, roughly 45 women, and as I said, 15 to 20 homeless veterans. We have also recently relocated case managers with our SSVF program, and it's supportive services for veterans and their family members, and they're currently occupying the building. Our renovations have begun in earnest. We started in, I believe it was July. The time frame is roughly just before Christmas. The renovations should be completed. And then during the month of the early part to the mid part of January 2017, the residents of the two buildings that are affected will be relocated to the building. We're excited. Sue Valillo, I've talked to her. Sue reports to me, and she and Vic Ward and the staff at Faith Mission are really excited about this opportunity. And we just want to say thank you again to the City of Columbus for your support of what we're doing and what we're trying to do to help those that are among the most vulnerable people in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for coming down and certainly sharing the work that's going on at 217 North Grant. I'm excited that this facility will be across the street, as you just mentioned, from the other facility that I know that we worked closely with you on, and especially that community kitchen and providing those other resources to help individuals to move forward, getting the health care that they need, getting the opportunity to look for jobs and have some job placement. So that's critical, because if you happen to be a homeless person, you certainly need to be able to work with their navigation systems to be able to get back on their feet and moving forward. And so we appreciate that. This particular facility, certainly, I know that we've done a lot of investing in the family and our family shelters, but this is also a critical shelter for our homeless men and women, and also mentioned our homeless veterans. And very excited that we'll be able to serve probably, looks like the number is either 100 and looks like 170 or so people within this facility. And so I'm excited. I'm glad you started work in July. I look forward to coming to visit in January as we open this new facility. So again, this is $2 million, and $2 million well spent to help get people back, giving them the resources they need to move forward in their lives. Thank you for the work that you do each and every day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, well, I want to again thank all the individuals that have presented this evening. I want to thank my council members and their staffs who really work hard each and every day to be able to provide the best service to our residents. Tonight's hearing was again a way for our community to be able to have knowledge of the legislation that will be before the council on September the 12th or September the 19th. It gives our residents just an opportunity to be engaged in the legislative process, which I'm excited about. Before I conclude, again, I want to thank Director Joe Lombardi, who gave us the second quarter update of our finances, and he is Director of Finance and Management. Thank you, Director. I also want to thank Melinda Frank, who is from the Auditor's Office from the Income Tax Division. She is the administrator. Of course, from Columbus Public Health, Dr. Mashika William Roberts, the Medical Director and Assistant Health Commissioner. And the Department of Development, Hannah Jones, Deputy Director of Community Development. Again, I thank my council members. I want to thank the city's Legislative Research Office. Michael Kessler, who was in the chambers this evening, I want to thank him, who leads the Legislative Research team. I want to thank Aaron Beck, who was in the chambers tonight, who helped staff Health and Human Services. and Workforce Development. I want to thank Matt Erickson, who staffs finance. Also, my staff, Nicole Harper and Carl Williams. Also, Nancy Sully was in council chambers this evening. Nancy works with our community outreach department, and so appreciate her being in chambers. And then the hardworking staff of CTV who make these hearings possible. And finally, the residents of Columbus who make our city the best place to live, work, and to raise a family. And this hearing is adjourned. Everyone have a good evening. Thank you.